I was put in the worst room while my friends got luxury suites, but they unaware I was the hotel's owner, until a hotel notice left them terrified. When we arrived at the Paradiso Resort on that sunny Thursday in March, I already knew something was wrong. The way Rachel, Julia, and Amanda whispered during the trip, how they avoided my gaze when talking about the rooms, and how they laughed at jokes I didn't understand, it all felt off. They had spent weeks planning our birthday trip, supposedly to celebrate my 30th birthday. But when we went to check in, I discovered that while they got ocean view suites on the 10th floor, I had been gifted a room on the ground floor overlooking the parking lot. "Oh, Cammy, it was hilarious," Rachel laughed, tossing her platinum blonde hair back. That laugh I'd known since college. The laugh she gave when she was being especially cruel. We thought it would be such a funny joke. "You've always been so humble, so detached from material things. You'll love a simpler little room." "More your vibe," Julia completed, holding the arm of the rich boyfriend she'd brought, some guy named Eduardo she'd met on an app and couldn't stop showing off. "Besides, you're always saying you don't care about these luxury things, that what matters is being with friends. Now you can prove it wasn't just lip service." Amanda just smiled, that smile I'd known since we were coworkers 10 years ago, the smile she gave when she was being especially cruel and wanted to seem innocent. "And honey, let's face it, you wouldn't be able to afford a suite anyway. It's already a miracle you managed to come on the trip." I took the key with a sweet smile. The same submissive smile I'd practiced for years. "How sweet of you to think of me." "Always so thoughtful," I said, my voice meek and resigned as it always was when they teased me. They exchanged glances with that look of satisfaction, the look of someone who had just done a good deed for a less fortunate person. What they didn't know, what they never wanted to know, was that I was mentally noting every word, every little laugh, every look of superiority. Because, you see, there was something my dear friends never knew about me. I wasn't just Camila, the marketing consultant who shared an apartment with two strangers and saved penny by penny to afford travel. I was Camila, owner of a 5-star hotel chain that included that exact resort where we were staying. Yes, the Paradiso Resort was mine, along with 4 other hotels spread across the United States, an inheritance from my paternal grandfather who always taught me that truly powerful people don't need to prove anything to anyone, that true elegance lies in discretion. I maintained my apparently simple life by personal choice, working in marketing, which had always been my passion, while my specialized team managed the hotel business. But I always kept absolute control over everything, participating in important decisions and regularly visiting the properties. While they went up to their luxurious rooms, commenting loudly about how I should be grateful for the opportunity to see such a fancy hotel, I went straight to my ground floor room. It was simple, functional, but perfectly clean and organized, exactly enough for what I needed. I called Marcus, my general manager, who almost choked on his coffee when he heard my voice. "Miss Santos, I didn't know you were here. Was there a problem with the reservations? Any emergency?" "No, Marcus. Actually, I'm here on vacation, incognito. But I need you to keep absolute secrecy about my identity. Not even the cleaning staff can know. And there are some modifications I'd like to make to rooms 1012, 1015, and 1017. Marcus was a professional with 20 years of experience in luxury hospitality. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Understood, ma'am. What kind of modifications?" "Minor technical problems. Nothing that compromises safety, but enough to cause inconveniences. Air conditioning with thermostat malfunctions, water heater with intermittent operation, unstable Wi-Fi. You understand?" "Perfectly," he replied. "It will be implemented today." I hung up with a smile. Things were going to get very interesting in the next few days. At dinner, they arrived complaining about the first technical problems that Marcus had implemented with his usual efficiency. "Can you believe the air conditioning in my suite is broken?" Rachel huffed, adjusting the Versace dress she'd bought especially for the trip. "It's unbearably hot up there, for the price we're paying. This is inadmissible." "Mine too." Julia joined the chorus of complaints. "And the shower only gives lukewarm water." I tried calling reception 3 times, but I only managed to speak to an attendant who said, "The technician only comes tomorrow." Tomorrow? As if that were acceptable. Amanda shook her head dramatically. "I managed to shower because I have more patience than you, but room service was 2 hours late. 2 hours. Lucky Camila is on the floor below, right? At least she doesn't have to deal with these problems from the good rooms. In the simpler rooms, these things work just fine." They laughed in that way I knew so well, the laugh of those who think they're superior. I smiled meekly, cutting my grilled salmon carefully. "What a shame, girls. Really, my room is perfect. Air conditioning working like clockwork, hot water, impeccable service. Even the Wi-Fi is excellent." "Of course it is." Rachel rolled her eyes, taking a sip of the most expensive wine on the menu. "In the cheaper rooms, they don't need to worry so much about equipment quality, it's less stuff to break down." That's when the little jokes about my career, my professional life, and my financial situation began. How I was struggling in the job market, how I was brave, always that word said with condescension, for insisting on being independent consultant instead of looking for a real job with signed papers and benefits. "Seriously, Cammy," Julia said, gesturing with her fork. "You're 30 years old. Don't you think it's time to mature professionally, get a serious job? I have a cousin who works in HR. I can put in a word for you." "Julia's right," Amanda agreed, feigning concern. "Freelancer isn't a profession. It's an excuse for people who can't commit to anything serious in life." "Girls, please," I said softly, with the voice I always used when they advised me. I'm fine like this. I like what I do. Oh, Cammy, you're so proud, Amanda sighed, as if my pride were a character flaw. Look, we can split the dinner bill. Don't worry. We know things are tight for you. There's no shame in accepting help from friends. Rachel waved to the waiter with that imperious air she cultivated. Put everything on my account. The birthday girl doesn't need to worry about money today. The tone was loaded with condescension, as if they were doing charity work, as if I were their social project. I graciously accepted, thanking them for their kindness and true friendship. Inside, I was mentally calculating exactly what each of them deserved to receive in return. When we finished dinner and they finished discreetly humiliating me for another hour, I said goodbye early. I'm going to rest, girls. Thank you for the wonderful dinner and even better company. Of course, dear, Rachel said, already half drunk from the expensive wine. You were always the most well-behaved in the group, the most proper. Go to sleep early to save energy for tomorrow. We're going to have a full day. More laughter, more looks of superiority, more comments about how I was predictable and proper. I went back to my ground floor room and called Marcus again. How are the repairs in my friends' rooms? Exactly as you requested, Miss Santos. Air conditioning with thermostat problems. It will heat and cool randomly all night. Water heater with intermittent malfunctions. It will give lukewarm water most of the time. And I programmed some strategic delays in room service. Nothing that compromises safety or causes real damage, but enough to cause quite a bit of inconvenience. Perfect, Marcus. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, ma'am, we have a scheduled renovation of the 10th floor's air conditioning system. It will require the use of noisy equipment quite early, let's say at 6 in the morning. Excellent. Oh, and Marcus, that connectivity problem with the 10th floor Wi-Fi? Already implemented total signal intermittency. Very frustrating for those who depend on the internet to work or post on social media. I looked out my room's window, from where I could see perfectly the lights of their suites on the 10th floor. 3 golden dots in the darkness, unaware that the woman they so despised and underestimated controlled every aspect of their experience in that place. Thank you, Marcus. Tomorrow we'll talk about the next steps of the operation. I hung up and smiled to myself for the first time in a long time. A genuine smile, not the submissive smile I had perfected over the years. They wanted to play superiority. They wanted to treat me like a charity project. Perfect. I was just beginning to show them what a constantly underestimated woman was truly capable of doing when she finally decided to stop pretending to be less than she really was. You know that feeling when you have absolute power to completely change a situation, but no one around you has the slightest idea? That was exactly what I was feeling the next morning, Friday. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, more refreshed and energized than I had felt in years. I had a crystal clear plan in my head and all the necessary resources to execute it perfectly. At exactly 6 o'clock in the morning, the show began. I had instructed Marcus to schedule emergency preventive maintenance repairs on the 10th floor's air conditioning system. Nothing dangerous, obviously. I'm not a psychopath, just a woman who was finally returning years of humiliation. But enough for drills, pneumatic hammers, and various equipment to wake up my dear friends quite early, completely interrupting their sleep. My phone rang at exactly 6:15 in the morning. Rachel, obviously with that hoarse voice of someone who had just been abruptly awakened. Camila, for God's sake, are you hearing this infernal commotion? What a fifth-rate hotel! I can't sleep or die with this noise from hell. It sounds like they're demolishing the entire building. How strange, I replied, yawning theatrically and stretching in my comfortable and silent bed. Down here, everything is perfectly quiet, not even a single noise. What a shame you're going through this. It must be very unpleasant, indeed. Unpleasant? This is torture. I'm going down to reception right now and making the biggest scene. I'm going to demand a full refund and compensation for moral damages. Good luck, Rachel. I hope they can resolve it quickly. It must be some urgent technical problem. I hung up with a satisfied smile and immediately called Marcus. How's the situation up there? Exactly as planned, Miss Santos. The guests in rooms 1012, 1015, and 1017 are quite bothered by the maintenance noise. We've already received 3 furious complaints at reception in the last 15 minutes. Our staff is being extremely accommodating, offering profuse apologies and promising to resolve the situation as soon as possible. Perfect. And how long exactly will this emergency repair last? Well, considering it's Friday and some specific equipment might take a while to arrive from the supplier, I'd say maybe until Monday morning. Safety issues, you understand? I smiled even more. Marcus was truly an exceptional manager. Perfect, Marcus. Oh, and that intermittent technical problem with the 10th floor Wi-Fi you mentioned yesterday? Oh yes. Unfortunately, the signal intermittency is quite severe today. Our connectivity specialist can only come on Monday too. What an unfortunate coincidence. And the main elevator that gives direct access to the 10th floor? Also, with preventive maintenance scheduled for today. Nothing dangerous, of course, but it will work significantly slower. For the total safety of guests, of course. They'll have to use the stairs or wait quite a long time. I was having much more fun than I should have, but after 15 years of swallowing humiliations, I thought I deserved a little fun. You're truly an exceptional manager, Marcus. Your efficiency is impressive. When I went down to breakfast an hour later, I found the 3 looking like authentic zombies from a horror movie. Deep dark circles, completely messy hair, expressions of those who had spent the night awake being tortured by infernal noises. Cammy, Julia practically ran to me, stumbling over her own legs. Thank God you arrived. You need to switch rooms with one of us immediately. This hotel is complete garbage. Garbage, we couldn't sleep even 5 minutes. Amanda completed with a hoarse voice and red eyes. They started construction at 6 in the morning. 6 in the morning? Who does that? And when we went down to complain, that incompetent attendant said it was a security system emergency. Rachel appeared, carrying a breakfast tray, clearly trying to stay awake through caffeine. And the Wi-Fi simply doesn't work. I haven't been able to post anything on Instagram since last night. My followers must think I died or was kidnapped. Wow, what a really horrible situation, I said with genuine concern in my voice, calmly serving myself fresh fruit and yogurt. You must be exhausted. But don't you think switching rooms would be kind of unfair to me? I mean, you consciously chose the best and most expensive rooms for yourselves. It would be very strange for me to get an ocean view suite now, don't you think? They exchanged glances with that look I knew very well, the look of those who realize they're being confronted with their own logic. Julia forced a yellow smile. Cammy, it's just for a few days until they resolve this mess. You understand the situation, right? We're paying much more for our rooms. Of course, I understand perfectly, I replied, taking a delicate bite of whole grain toast. But you always told me that I'm very simple, that I don't care about material luxuries, that what matters is being with friends. It would be kind of contradictory of me to want to switch now just because you're having problems, don't you think? The silence that followed was absolutely delicious. They didn't know how to respond without explicitly admitting they had always seen me as inferior, as someone who didn't deserve good things. Besides, I continued calmly, my room is absolutely perfect. Air conditioning working like clockwork, Wi-Fi with excellent speed, total silence to sleep peacefully. It would really be very foolish of me to give up all this comfort. Rachel slammed her fist on the table hard, making the plates tremble. So, you're simply not going to help us? We've been your friends for 15 years. Of course I'll help, I replied immediately, taking out my phone. Let me call reception and register a formal complaint about your situation. I'll do what I can. I called the reception extension, knowing Marcus would answer personally. Hi, good morning. This is Camila from room 204. I'd like to register a formal complaint about the situation in rooms 112, 1015, and 1017. My friends are very bothered by the technical problems. I'm very sorry, Miss Santos, Marcus replied. We're completely aware of the situation and doing absolutely everything within our power to resolve it. I can offer a 20% discount on their daily rate as compensation for the inconveniences. A discount? Rachel almost screamed, getting up from her chair. I don't want a discount. I want a real solution to the problems. Marcus continued with his professional and polite voice. Unfortunately, for safety and regulatory reasons, we cannot interrupt repairs once they've started, but I can guarantee that by Monday morning, everything will be completely resolved. Monday? Amanda turned red with rage. Today is Friday. You expect us to spend the entire weekend in this unbearable situation? Again, I'm deeply sorry. It's really the best we can do at the moment. I hung up and faced their looks of absolute despair. I tried to do what I could, girls. At least I got a 20% discount for you. Discount my ass! Rachel exploded completely. I want a room that works. I want air conditioning, internet, and silence. Rachel, you don't need to use that vocabulary, I said softly, with the tone I always used when they got agitated. I'm doing everything I can to help you. Julia sighed deeply and ran her hand through her messy hair. Sorry, Cammy, we're very stressed and tired. You're being an angel trying to help us. An angel? If they only knew how much I was enjoying that situation. The rest of the morning was a true parade of small disasters carefully orchestrated. When they went to the hotel's luxury spa, they discovered their premium reservations had been accidentally canceled due to a scheduling system failure. When they tried to use the exclusive gym, they discovered their access cards were temporarily deactivated for technical reasons. Room service continued to be systematically delayed. Orders that should have arrived in 30 minutes took 2 hours. This is completely impossible, Rachel screamed in the main lobby, drawing the attention of other guests. Absolutely everything is going wrong just for us. This is not a coincidence. I was beside her, making a face of genuine solidarity. Really, very strange. Could it just be a sequence of bad luck? Bad luck? Amanda rolled her eyes dramatically. Camila, this isn't bad luck. This is total and absolute incompetence. The duty manager approached discreetly. One of my most experienced and diplomatic employees. I'm very sorry about the situation, ladies. Unfortunately, we've been having some unexpected technical problems today. I can offer free treatments at the spa as soon as we have available slots. When exactly? Julia asked with a hint of hope in her voice. Well, unfortunately today our schedule is completely booked with existing reservations, but maybe on Monday we'll have some openings. Monday again? Rachel almost had a nervous breakdown. Everything in this damn hotel is always Monday. I put my hand on her shoulder in a gesture of support. Calm down, Rachel. Let's enjoy the beach then. At least that can't go wrong, right? How wrong I was. When we got to the hotel's private beach, they discovered the premium chairs they had reserved and paid extra for were occupied by other guests, and apparently there was a confusion in the reservation system. The beach bar waiter politely informed them that the ordering tablet had a technical malfunction, and the cherry on top, it started raining torrentially. I simply don't believe it! Amanda screamed, running desperately for shelter. Even the weather seems to be conspiring against us. Well, I really couldn't control that, but it was definitely working in my favor. Back at the hotel, they were completely demolished. Wet hair stuck to their heads, mood in the basement, no Wi-Fi to complain on social media or vent to other people. I, on the other hand, was absolutely radiant. Girls, how about we order room service for dinner today? It should be much nicer and more comfortable than the restaurant. Great idea, Julia agreed immediately. At least we don't have to leave these cursed rooms. They went up to their rooms and I immediately called Marcus. How is the operation going? Absolutely perfect, Miss Santos. They are visibly quite frustrated and exhausted. And about the room service they're going to order for dinner? You can rest assured it will be delayed about 3 hours, and when it finally arrives, it might be cold. Small kitchen problem. You know how these things happen. Understood. Perfectly. Anything else scheduled for tomorrow? Yes, ma'am. Tomorrow, I'm going to intensify the situation a bit more according to your instructions. I hung up and threw myself on my comfortable bed. Up there, I knew they were stewing in anger and tiredness, unable to understand why absolutely everything was going wrong. And the best part, they didn't even suspect that the blame was entirely on poor little Camila, who was quietly installed in her simple ground floor room, carefully planning the next move. Revenge, I discovered at that moment, had an incredibly sweet taste, and I was just beginning to savor it. Saturday morning arrived with more deafening noise from emergency maintenance repairs. At 6:30 in the morning, my phone rang again, but this time it was Rachel, and she didn't just sound irritated and tired. There was something different in her voice, something that made me slightly worried. Camila, are you absolutely sure you're not hearing anything down there in your room? Nothing, Rachel. Everything is perfectly quiet here, I lied shamelessly, since I could clearly hear the noise from the equipment on the upper floors. Why that question? It's just that it's very, very strange. All the technical problems are exclusively on our floor. Don't you think that's too strange a coincidence? My heart sped up slightly. Rachel had always been the smartest and most observant of the group, the most suspicious. Coincidence how, Rachel? I don't know how to explain it properly, but yesterday, I started noticing how all the employees treat you completely differently. That restaurant waiter was extremely helpful and attentive to you, but with us, he was quite basic in protocol. And when you called to complain about our situation, he called you Miss Santos, with a tone of respect he doesn't use with other guests. Rachel, they're simply more polite to me because I don't yell or mistreat anyone, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. You were really very agitated yesterday. Employees respond well to kindness. Maybe you're right, Rachel said, not sounding convinced at all. But I still think this whole situation is very strange. I'm going to pay much more attention today to how they interact with you. I hung up, genuinely worried. Rachel had always had a sharp sixth sense for these things, a natural intuition for detecting when something wasn't right. I was going to have to be much more careful and discreet from now on. At breakfast, they arrived even worse than the day before. Julia had dark circles so deep she looked like she hadn't slept for a week. Amanda had her hair tied up carelessly and no makeup. And Rachel was watching me with laser attention, analyzing every movement of mine, every facial expression. Cammy, Julia said, practically collapsing into her chair as if she didn't have the strength to stay upright. Are you absolutely sure you don't want to switch rooms with me? I'll pay the entire price difference, I swear to God. Julia, we already talked extensively about this yesterday. It really wouldn't be fair to me. Fair? Amanda let out a bitter and desperate laugh. Are you serious about fairness? We brought you on this trip, paid for your dinner yesterday, and you can't do this simple favor for your friends? Rachel continued watching me intensely while Amanda spoke, as if she were trying to read my mind. I maintained a neutral expression, but inside I was absolutely fascinated. The extreme frustration and tiredness were transforming their usual mask of condescending superiority into something much more raw, honest, and revealing. Amanda, I said, I didn't ask you to pay for my dinner yesterday. You categorically insisted. Because we know perfectly well that you can't afford it. Julia exploded, completely losing her composure. For God's sake, Camila, stop pretending you're doing well in life. You live in a tiny apartment shared with strangers. You don't have your own car. You work as a freelancer without any stability. We're genuinely trying to help you. Help? I repeated slowly, letting the word echo. Is that what you call help? Rachel leaned forward, still studying me. Cammy, you're acting very strangely. Normally, you'd be the first person to try to please everyone, to do anything to keep the peace. Why are you being so inflexible now? That was like a slap in the face. She was completely right. Normally, I would do anything to avoid conflict, to maintain group harmony, to make them satisfied with me. But now, I said, surprised by my own sincerity, maybe I'm tired of always giving in to everything. Maybe I finally realized that you only seek me out when you need to feel superior to someone. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. Amanda dropped her coffee cup with such force it almost broke the saucer. Julia widened her eyes as if I had blasphemed. And Rachel smiled, a small smile, but genuine. There, Rachel said calmly. Now you're finally telling the truth. Finally, Rachel? Julia protested indignantly. No, Julia, she's completely right. We treat her like she's our mascot, the poor little friend we carry around to feel generous and superior. Amanda turned red with rage. That That's complete nonsense. We've been her friends for 15 years. Have we really? Rachel stared directly at me. Camila, when was the last time you two called her just to chat and see how she's doing? When was the last time you asked about her dreams, about what she really wants from life? I was genuinely shocked. Rachel was defending me. You don't call either, Amanda retorted defensively. I know that, Rachel admitted without hesitation. And that's exactly why I'm talking. We're terrible friends to her, absolutely terrible. But at least I can admit that truth. Julia got up abruptly from the table. You two are completely crazy. I'm not going to stay here listening to this. I'm going to the spa to try to relax and forget this ridiculous conversation. Good luck with that, I murmured quietly, remembering perfectly the specific instructions I had given Marcus about the spa. Julia left, stomping like a child having a tantrum. Amanda followed her immediately, and Rachel stayed with me at the table. Camila? She said in a low voice. I really don't know what's happening at this hotel, but I'm absolutely sure there's something very wrong, and I know you're not telling us something important. My blood literally froze. What exactly are you talking about? The employees know you. It's not just basic professional politeness. That waiter yesterday knew your full name before you introduced yourself. And today, when you passed by reception, the attendant waved at you like he was a longtime personal friend. I had been careless and negligent. Rachel, you're being paranoid. We've been here for 3 days. It's perfectly normal that they already know me. Is it really? She leaned closer, lowering her voice even more. Then why, when I asked about the possibility of switching rooms yesterday, did the same attendant say it would be completely impossible? But when you passed near him, he said, Good morning, Miss Santos. I sincerely hope you're enjoying your stay with us. Maybe because I wasn't rude or yelled at him, I tried desperately. Rachel shook her head determinedly. No, Camila. There's something much deeper happening here, and I'm going to find out exactly what it is. She got up and left, leaving me alone with my racing heart. I was going to have to significantly accelerate my plans. I called Marcus immediately. We have a serious problem. Rachel is suspicious and actively investigating. I need all employees to be much more discreet. Understood perfectly, Miss Santos. I'll pass the instruction to the entire staff immediately. And Marcus, that luxurious spa day they planned for this afternoon? Yes, ma'am. Everything will go absolutely wrong. Mysteriously lost reservations, basic treatments, instead of the premium ones they paid for, small embarrassing accidents, nothing that compromises safety but enough to make them even more frustrated. Consider it done, Miss Santos. 3 hours later, they returned from the spa completely distraught. Julia had visibly poorly done hair, asymmetrical and with completely uneven layers. Amanda had a strange reddish stain on her face. And Rachel was watching me with that calculating and determined look. Let me guess, I said with false concern. It wasn't exactly what you expected. They completely lost our premium reservations, Julia practically screamed, pointing to her own hair. Lost them. They said they only had slots available for basic last category treatments. I asked for a professional cut and sophisticated styling. Look what they did to my hair. It really was horrible, asymmetrical, with poorly executed layers and a length that didn't flatter her face shape at all. And I specifically asked for a hydrating and anti-aging facial treatment, and they applied some substance that caused a terrible allergic reaction. Amanda showed her irritated face with red spots. My skin is literally burning and itching. What an absolutely horrible situation, I murmured, trying to seem supportive while inside I was holding back from laughing. You should definitely sue this hotel. You can be absolutely sure I'm going to sue, Julia continued furiously. This is gross negligence, total incompetence. When I manage to post on social media, I'm going to destroy this place's reputation. Oh, that's right, Rachel interrupted coldly, not taking her penetrating eyes off me. You forgot the Wi-Fi mysteriously doesn't work. Or does Camila happen to have perfect internet in her room? They all stared at me simultaneously. I do have internet, I admitted reluctantly. But it's probably because it's a simpler, more basic room. Maybe the network system is different. Of course it is, Rachel said with a tone that hid absolutely nothing of the sarcasm. Everything works perfectly for you, but for us who are in the expensive and luxurious rooms, absolutely everything goes wrong. What a fascinating and interesting coincidence. Amanda frowned, as if she were beginning to process something. Wait a minute. Are you insinuating that Camila has something to do with all these problems? I'm saying there are too many coincidences, Rachel replied, staring directly at me. Too many coincidences to be just coincidences. The moment was getting genuinely dangerous. I urgently needed to divert their attention. Guys, honestly, you're being paranoid. I'm Camila, the same Camila as always, the one who never complains about anything. Remember? Do you really think I would have the power or ability to sabotage your vacation? Julia laughed out loud. Rachel, you're really delusional. Camila can barely pay her own monthly bills. How the hell could she harm us at a hotel of this level? I don't know how, Rachel admitted, her voice loaded with determination. But I know there is something very wrong happening here, and I'm going to find out exactly what it is. She stared at me for a few more tense seconds and then left determinedly. Amanda and Julia followed her, still complaining loudly about the spa problems. I was left alone at the table, feeling an intense mixture of adrenaline and nervousness. Rachel was getting dangerously close to the truth, but at the same time, the other two were becoming increasingly cruel and honest about what they really thought of me. It was definitely time to drastically accelerate things. On Monday, everything would be revealed spectacularly. But before that, I still had 2 full days to show them exactly what happened when they completely underestimated the wrong person. The game was getting riskier, but also infinitely more interesting and satisfying. Sunday was the day I decided to have no more mercy. If Rachel was suspecting and actively investigating anyway, then it would be better to make everything really worth it. I called Marcus at 5 in the morning, before the sun even rose. Marcus, today is going to be the spectacular grand finale of the weekend. I want absolutely everything that can go wrong to go wrong dramatically, but rigorously maintaining all safety protocols, of course. Understood perfectly, Miss Santos. What exactly do you have in mind? First, their personal luggage. Let's say there was a terrible confusion in the hotel laundry service. Some important pieces might have been temporarily misplaced. Nothing permanent, but enough to cause panic. Interesting strategy. And regarding restaurants and services? Oh yes, all their exclusive reservations for today have been mysteriously canceled due to critical problems in the management system. And when they try to make new reservations, coincidentally, will be completely booked. Pure coincidence, obviously. Any other specific instructions? Yes, I want them to be systematically confused with other problematic guests. Small, embarrassing misunderstandings that make them feel unimportant and humiliated. Perfect. I'll coordinate the entire operation personally. At 8 in the morning, my phone rang 3 times in quick succession. Julia first, completely hysterical. Camila, you simply won't believe it. My most expensive clothes have completely disappeared. I sent them to be washed yesterday morning, and now they say they got lost in the system. My Prada dress, my Gucci blouse, everything. Rachel next, with a tense voice of controlled anger. Cammy, there's something very, very wrong happening here. My very important person reservation for tonight's dinner was canceled without notice. They say it was a system error, but I don't believe it one bit. And lastly, Amanda, clearly crying. They confused me with someone else at reception. I went to ask for simple information about activities, and the attendant treated me like I was a troublesome guest on the blacklist. He said my name was on a list of problematic people. What an absolutely horrible situation, I replied to each one individually, feigning genuine shock and indignation. Do you want me to come down immediately to try to resolve something? No. Rachel was categorical and firm. You stay exactly where you are. I'm going to resolve this personally, face to face. When I went down to breakfast, I found a scene of total war. Julia was wearing exactly the same clothes as yesterday, clearly without having been able to shower properly. Amanda was crying discreetly in the corner, desperately fiddling with her phone without Wi-Fi. And Rachel was at the reception counter, interrogating the poor attendant like an experienced detective investigating a crime. This simply doesn't make any logical sense, she was saying, pounding her fist on the marble counter. You don't lose VIP guests' luggage. You don't cancel premium reservations without notice. And you don't confuse guests by pure accident. Something very specific is happening here. The attendant, one of my most experienced and diplomatic employees, maintained absolute professional calm. Ma'am, I understand your frustration perfectly, but sometimes these unfortunate situations happen simultaneously. It's extremely rare. Rare? Rachel screamed, losing her composure. This isn't rare. This is statistically impossible. And why the hell does it only happen to us? Why doesn't our friend in the cheap room have a single problem? I approached casually, as if I had just arrived. Rachel, is everything okay? You seem very agitated. She turned to me with eyes literally shining with pure rage and intense suspicion. No, Camila, absolutely nothing is okay, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Me? I honestly don't understand. Oh, you don't understand? Rachel crossed her arms and stared directly at me. Then explain to me in detail why, in 3 complete days, you haven't had a single minimal problem while we 3 have lived constant hell. The others approached quickly, curious and tense about the growing discussion. Rachel, Julia intervened, trying to mediate. You're being unfair to Cammy. It's not her fault that our rooms have all these technical problems, is it? Rachel laughed, but there was absolutely no humor in the laugh. Julia, don't you find it even a little strange that absolutely all the employees know her full name? That when she passes through the lobby, they stop what they're doing to greet her respectfully, that the Wi-Fi works perfectly in her room? Amanda stopped crying and stared at us. What exactly are you talking about, Rachel? I'm talking about the fact that our dear friend Camila is not being completely honest with us about who she really is, Rachel said, staring intensely at me. Isn't that right, Camila? My heart raced violently, but I managed to keep my face neutral. Rachel, you're being genuinely paranoid. The extreme stress of the situation is clearly affecting your judgment. Paranoid? Rachel took out her phone. Then you won't mind at all if I record our conversation and post it on social media when the Wi-Fi comes back. I'm going to tell this whole strange story in detail. Rachel! Julia protested immediately. You can't expose the hotel publicly like that! Why can't I? Rachel turned to her. They're providing absolutely horrible service. Or do you also think all this is completely normal? That's when Amanda said something that completely changed the dynamics of the situation. You know what? Even if it's Rachel's paranoia, I completely agree with her. Camila is strange. Very, very strange. She's not even a little worried or affected by our problems. What exactly do you mean? I asked, trying desperately to maintain innocence. Like this. Amanda exploded completely. Normally, you'd run after absolutely everything to help us. You were always our obedient doormat, always did anything to please us and keep the peace. And now you're there, calm and quiet, as if it's absolutely not your problem. Julia nodded vigorously. It's true. You've changed completely, Cammy, and you changed exactly when we arrived here at this specific hotel. Rachel smiled triumphantly, a smile of someone who was about to discover something big and revealing. Very interesting, don't you think? Our eternally submissive friend suddenly becomes assertive and independent right here at this specific hotel where absolutely everything goes wrong for us, but works perfectly for her. The silence was heavy and tense. I could physically feel the moment approaching, the moment when everything would inevitably be revealed, but it still wasn't the right time. It still wasn't the perfect moment I had planned. You're being absolutely ridiculous, I said finally with a firmer voice. I'm exactly the same person as always. No. Rachel shook her head determinedly. You're not the same person, and I'm going to find out exactly who you really are. She walked away decisively from the counter and headed with determination to the elevator. I'm going to my room to get some documents and make some important calls. When I come back, we're going to have a very, very serious conversation, Camila. The specific way she pronounced my full name made me freeze completely. There was something in the intonation, the emphasis. When the elevator finally closed, Amanda and Julia stared at me with growing suspicion. Camila, Julia said very slowly, if you're hiding something important from us, you'd better tell us right now. I'm not hiding absolutely anything, I said, a blatant lie. Amanda said categorically, Rachel is completely right, you're different, very different, and all these coincidental problems, it's statistically impossible. They kept watching me intensely for several minutes as if they expected me to confess right there in the middle of the lobby, but I definitely wasn't going to give them that pleasure. Not yet, not before the perfect moment. I'm going back to my room, I said finally. When you resolve this collective paranoia, let me know. I went up the stairs. The elevator was still under scheduled maintenance, and urgently called Marcus as soon as I got to my room. Marcus, Rachel is actively and systematically investigating. She may have discovered compromising information. Miss Santos, we just intercepted some of her call attempts. She's desperately trying to research information about the hotel's legal ownership. My blood literally froze. And did she manage to discover anything? She hasn't gotten conclusive information yet. The Wi-Fi continues to be unstable for her, obviously, but if she manages to use the business center computer, I'll cut access immediately. Generalized technical problems, any plausible excuse. Already taken care of, ma'am. But I need to warn you. She's extremely persistent and intelligent, and the other two are starting to actively suspect too. I looked out the window, contemplating the pool where I had meticulously planned everything to be dramatically revealed on Monday. Maybe it wasn't possible to wait that long. Marcus? Prepare absolutely everything for tomorrow morning, early. If Rachel is investigating with that determination, then she's going to discover the truth anyway. Better that it be exactly my way. Understood perfectly. Do you want me to prepare something special for the occasion? I smiled, feeling pure adrenaline running through my veins. Yes, I want the entire senior staff to be present. And I want you to treat this as a spectacular event. After all, it's not every day that the owner dramatically reveals her identity to guests who systematically humiliated her for a lifetime. It will be an absolute pleasure, Miss Santos. I hung up and threw myself on the bed, more excited than I had felt in years. Rachel was getting dangerously close to the truth, but she wasn't going to find out before I was completely ready to reveal everything on my terms. And when I finally revealed it, it would be absolutely spectacular and unforgettable. Outside, I could hear Amanda and Julia arguing loudly in the lobby, with Rachel returning and joining the heated discussion. From the rising tone of voices, the investigation was definitely heating up. Perfect. Let them dig their own grave a little more. Tomorrow morning, they were going to find out exactly who Camila really was, and they were going to deeply regret every cruel word they had said during all these years. Monday arrived with a crystal clear blue and sunny sky. The absolutely perfect day for dramatic revelations and settling accounts. I woke up at 5 in the morning, not from nervousness or anxiety, but from pure anticipation and excitement. Today would finally be the day they would definitively discover who really ran that place. I called Marcus as soon as the sun began to appear on the horizon. Absolutely everything ready for the final operation? Yes, Miss Santos. The staff is completely ready and prepared. We have all the security recordings from the last 4 days edited and ready for presentation. And I prepared some very convincing special surprises for your friends. Perfect. At exactly 10 o'clock, I want them to be officially informed that they must leave the hotel immediately. Formal eviction. Exactly. Serious inappropriate behavior, damage to hotel property, systematic disturbance of other guests. You know perfectly how to make it seem completely official and irrefutable. It will be an absolute pleasure to execute. At 8 in the morning, everything began with military precision. First, Julia discovered that her bank account had been temporarily frozen due to suspicious activities detected by the hotel's security system. Then, Amanda was formally informed that there was an official investigation about possible use of illegal substances in her room, based on a credible anonymous tip from other guests. And Rachel? Rachel discovered she was being formally accused of systematic moral and verbal harassment of hotel employees. My phone simply wouldn't stop ringing with desperate calls. "Camila!" Julia screamed hysterically. "They're saying I intentionally damaged the room, that I'll have to pay $3,000 in repairs." "Cammy, for God's sake, help!" Amanda cried uncontrollably. "They think I use hard drugs. They said they're going to call the local police to investigate." And Rachel, the most dangerous and determined of all, Camilla, this is definitely not a coincidence. It's not an accident. Someone specific is orchestrating all this against us, and I know for sure that you know exactly who it is. I went down to the lobby at 9:30, where I found a scene of complete controlled chaos. They were literally surrounded by hotel employees, uniformed security guards, and what appeared to be officials formally investigating the accusations. Luggage scattered on the floor, papers being meticulously reviewed, security cameras being analyzed on tablets. "Camila!" Julia ran desperately to me. "You need to help us urgently. They're literally kicking us out of the hotel." "Kicking out?" I feigned absolute shock. "For what reason?" Marcus approached professionally, carrying an official clipboard. "Miss Santos, I deeply regret that your friends are going through this situation during your stay with us. Unfortunately, we had to take drastic measures due to serious irregularities." "What kind of irregularities exactly?" "Well," Marcus consulted his clipboard methodically. "Intentional material damage, systematic inappropriate behavior with employees, well-founded suspicion of illegal activities, and constant disturbance of other guests with excessive complaints and completely inappropriate language." Amanda exploded in despair. "That's a blatant lie. We didn't do absolutely any of that." "We have absolutely everything recorded and documented, ma'am," Marcus replied with professional calm. "Would you like to see all the evidence?" Rachel approached dangerously close to me, her eyes literally shining with pure and intense rage. "Camila, I know for sure that you're behind all this. I don't know how yet, but I know it's you." "Rachel, how could I be involved? I'm just a regular guest like you." "Really?" Rachel laughed, but it was a bitter and desperate laugh. "Then explain to me why Marcus calls you Miss Santos, with a tone of reverential respect that he uses exclusively with very important people. Why do all the employees treat you like you're someone special?" Julia and Amanda immediately stopped arguing with the security guards and stared at us with total attention. The entire lobby was paying attention to the growing discussion. "What are you talking about?" Julia asked, confused. "I'm talking about the fact that our dear friend Camila lied to us about something fundamental, something very, very big." Marcus looked at me discreetly, waiting for permission. I nodded almost imperceptibly, feeling my heart accelerate with anticipation. "Well," Marcus said, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear clearly, "since the ladies are going to leave the hotel anyway, I think there's no problem in completely clarifying the situation." He turned to me with a respectful and professional smile. "Miss Santos, would you like to formally introduce yourself to your friends?" The lobby fell into absolute and tense silence. Rachel turned visibly pale. Julia and Amanda stared at me without understanding absolutely anything. I took a deep breath and smiled, the most genuine and satisfied smile I had given in months. "Of course, Marcus, it will be a pleasure." I turned to them, seeing understanding begin to appear slowly in Rachel's eyes. "Girls, there are some important things I never told you about myself." "Camila," Rachel whispered, "what exactly did you do?" "Me? I didn't do absolutely anything except be exactly who I always was. The problem is that you never bothered to find out who I really was." Marcus stepped forward solemnly. "Ladies, I would like to formally introduce Camila, owner of the Paradiso Resort and 4 other hotels in the prestigious Santos hospitality chain." The silence was absolutely deafening. Julia opened and closed her mouth repeatedly, like a fish out of water. Amanda turned white as paper, and Rachel laughed, a laugh of pure incredulity and admiration. "You're the owner," Julia finally managed to articulate words. "You're the proprietor of the hotel." "Not just this one," I replied with absolute calm. "An inheritance from my paternal grandfather. 5 five-star hotels in total, spread across the United States. This one here is definitely my favorite." But, Amanda stammered desperately, "you live in a small shared apartment. You don't have your own car. You work as a freelancer." "By personal choice," I explained patiently. "My grandfather taught me that truly powerful people don't need to ostentatiously display their wealth. I have an exceptional team that manages the business while I do what I really love, work in marketing. But I always maintain total control over everything." Rachel shook her head slowly, still processing. You meticulously planned all this." "Planned what specifically, Rachel?" "The entire weekend. All the systematic problems, everything was orchestrated by you." I smiled more openly. "Oh, that? Well, you gave me the ground floor room as a joke, remember? I thought it would be fun to return the joke in kind." "Return?" Julia screamed indignantly. "You systematically tortured us." "Tortured?" I feigned genuine surprise. "I just offered you a hotel experience consistent with the level of respect you showed me." Marcus approached again. "Miss Santos, is there anything else you'd like to show your friends?" "Oh, yes, Marcus. Can you display those special recordings we prepared?" A giant, state-of-the-art television automatically descended from the lobby ceiling. On the screen, carefully edited scenes from the last 4 days began to appear, them laughing cruelly when they gave me the worst room, making malicious jokes about my life at dinner, offering me condescending charity, calling me an obedient doormat. Every cruel word, every superior little laugh, every moment of calculated humiliation was there, recorded in high definition with crystal-clear audio. "My God," Amanda whispered, seeing herself on screen saying I should accept my inferior place in life. The recording continued, also showing excerpts from my calls to Marcus, my detailed instructions to sabotage their experiences, my expression of satisfaction when everything went wrong for them. When the presentation ended, the lobby was full of guests watching, fascinated, employees discreetly applauding, and my ex-friends completely destroyed. "You all saw," I said, addressing not just them but the entire audience present. 4 complete days of how people who consider themselves superior treat someone they judge inferior, and 4 days of how that inferior person can in fact have all the real power. Rachel laughed again, but this time there was a clear note of admiration. "You're absolutely brilliant. Diabolic, but brilliant. Thank you, sincerely. I always knew you were the smartest of the group." Julia exploded completely. "You can't do this to us. This has to be illegal." "What exactly is illegal, Julia? Being the owner of my own hotel? Offering a level of service consistent with guests' behavior? Recording conversations in a public area? You signed all the terms of use when you checked in." Marcus stepped forward with official documents. "Actually, all actions taken are rigorously within the law and hotel policies. The ladies violated multiple guest conduct terms." Amanda started crying uncontrollably. "Camila, we've been your friends for 15 years. Friends?" I laughed genuinely. "You just watched 4 days of how you really treat me. Is that what you call friendship? We didn't know you had feelings," Amanda stammered. "Didn't know what? That I had human feelings? That your words hurt deeply? Or didn't know that I had enough power to fight back?" Silence took over the lobby completely again. Now, I continued with authority. "You're going to pay your bills in full, including all fees for damages and inappropriate behavior, and you're going to leave my hotel immediately. And girls," I smiled my sweetest and fakest smile, "I never want to see you in my life again." What happened next was even more satisfying than I had imagined in my wildest dreams. With the lobby completely packed with guests and employees watching, I decided it was time to make a final speech. A speech that would be remembered for a long time. "Since we're all here together," I began, climbing a few steps of the lobby's grand staircase to be in an elevated position, "I think it's time to clarify some things for everyone present." Marcus discreetly activated the hotel's sound system, and my voice echoed clearly through all floors. "My name is Camila, and this is my hotel. For 15 long years, I kept 3 people in my life whom I naively called friends, people who saw me as fundamentally inferior, who treated me like a charity project, who laughed at my life choices and offered me crumbs of kindness when they felt especially generous." Julia tried to interrupt me, but Rachel held her firmly. She knew it was better to let me speak. "During those 15 years, they never asked about my family, never genuinely interested themselves in my dreams, never wanted to know who I really was. I was just the convenient friend, the one who always said yes, the one who never complained, the one who did anything to maintain peace and harmony." I looked directly at them. "But do you know what I discovered this weekend? I discovered that I don't need people who only value me when they think I'm less than them." Amanda was crying openly. "Camila, we're sorry." "Sorry?" I laughed loudly. "You're sorry for being discovered, not for treating me badly for 15 entire years." I turned to the fascinated audience. "Do you want to know exactly what happened here? These 3 women came to my hotel thinking they were doing charity for me. They gave me the worst room as a joke. They laughed at my professional life. They offered to pay my bills because they thought I was poor. And for 4 days I returned exactly in kind." "You humiliated us publicly," Julia said, her voice trembling. "I did to you exactly what you did to me for 15 years. The only difference is that I had the real power to make a difference." Rachel stepped forward. "Camila, you're right. We were absolutely horrible. But that doesn't justify..." "Doesn't justify what, Rachel? Doesn't justify me finally showing who I really am? Doesn't justify me stopping pretending that I accept being treated like garbage?" I took out my phone and opened Instagram. "You were always obsessive about social media. Let's see how you look when the whole story spreads." I started posting in real time. Photos of the recordings, excerpts from the videos showing how they treated me, explaining the entire situation in detail. Within minutes, hundreds of comments began to appear. "My God, what absolutely horrible friends. This Camila is a revenge genius. They deserved every second of this. Justice perfectly served." Amanda desperately tried to grab my phone. "Stop that immediately. You're destroying our reputations." "Am I?" I continued posting methodically. "Or am I just publicly showing who you really are?" Julia turned dramatically to the other guests. "You don't understand. She planned all this coldly. She's a psychopath." An elegant elderly lady who had been watching everything approached. "Dear," she said gently to Julia, "I carefully watched the videos. What you did to this young woman was genuinely cruel. She just showed that you completely underestimated the wrong person." Other guests began to actively agree. "You were really mean to her. She just defended herself. Well deserved." The public humiliation was complete and absolute. Rachel quickly realized the situation was completely out of control and irreversible. Camila, what exactly do you want from us? Money? Public apologies? What will make you stop all this exposure? I want you to definitively get out of my life, I replied with absolute simplicity. Forever. I want you to pay your bills in full, including extra fees for inappropriate behavior, and never contact me again. And, if we don't want to pay these absurd fees? Amanda challenged desperately. Marcus approached with official documents. Ladies, according to the hotel's terms of use, inappropriate behavior, property damage, and disturbance of other guests result in additional fees. In your specific case, $3,000 each. $3,000 each? Julia screamed hysterically. This is outright robbery! It's the exact price of education, I replied coldly. Something you clearly never received in your lives. That's when something happened that I definitely didn't expect. Julia literally threw herself on her knees in front of me in the middle of the crowded lobby. Camila, I beg you, I have 2 small children. I can't pay this amount, and if this story spreads on social media, I'll definitely lose my job. You should have thought of that before spending 15 years systematically humiliating me. Amanda also knelt desperately. Cammy, we beg you on our knees. We're sorry. We promise we'll never treat you badly again. Too late for regrets. Rachel remained proudly standing, but I could see genuine tears in her eyes. You won completely, Camila. Totally. We were horrible. You proved your point dramatically, and now our life is ruined. Are you really happy? I looked at them, 2 on their knees begging pathetically, 1 crying standing up, and felt complete relief. Total and absolute relief. You know what, Rachel? Yes, I'm genuinely happy. For the first time in 15 years, I'm completely happy. Marcus approached with the final bills. Ladies, we urgently need to resolve the financial situation. They paid, obviously. Julia had to call her husband, crying and begging. Amanda used 5 different credit cards, and Rachel transferred money directly from her emergency savings account, $3,000 each, the exact price of years of systematic cruelty. When they finally left the hotel, I was in the lobby watching their humiliating exit. Rachel stopped at the revolving door and turned to me one last time. Camila, she shouted, loud enough for everyone to hear. You may have won today, but that doesn't change the fact that you're a vindictive and fundamentally cruel person. And you? I replied at the same volume. Are you people who only respect those who have power over you? At least I learned something important about myself. Did you learn anything? She didn't answer. They left, dragging their suitcases completely destroyed financially and emotionally. 6 months later, I'm here in my office in Miami, managing my 5 hotels and living my true life for the first time. I blocked all of them on all social media, changed my phone number, and moved to a luxurious apartment in Coral Gables because I discovered I do like certain beautiful things. The story spread on social media exactly as I wanted. It went viral with hashtags like #CamilaRevenge, #KarmaHotel, and #underestimatedwoman. I received literally thousands of support messages from people who had been through similar humiliation situations. Some even came to stay at my hotel specifically to meet the woman who got revenge on her fake friends. Julia really lost her job 2 weeks later. The company felt the negative exposure could harm their corporate image. She had to sell her car and move to a smaller apartment. Amanda developed severe anxiety from the public exposure and had to undergo intensive therapy. Her rich boyfriend left her when the story spread. And Rachel sent me a registered letter 3 months ago. I didn't open it. I threw it directly in the trash without even looking at the sender. Because you know what I learned? I learned that I don't need people who only value me when they discover I have power. I learned that pretending to be less than I am to maintain toxic relationships is a brutal form of self-betrayal. And I learned that sometimes revenge isn't about destroying the other person. It's about finally freeing yourself. Today I have real friends. People who met me as Camila, the successful businesswoman, and who value me for what I genuinely am. People who never needed to discover my wealth to treat me with basic respect. People who seek me out because they enjoy my company, not because they need to feel superior. Sometimes I still think about that weekend and I always smile. Not because I destroyed 3 people, although they definitely deserve the consequences of their own actions. I smile because I finally had the courage to be exactly who I am. And who I am is someone who no longer accepts crumbs of affection from people who think they're superior. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, if I think I went too far. My answer is always exactly the same. They had 15 entire years to treat me like a human being. I gave them 4 days to understand that they completely underestimated the wrong person. Considering the history, I think I was even too generous. And today, I wake up every day knowing that I'm respected for who I am, not tolerated out of pity or charity. I wake up knowing that the people in my life chose me genuinely, not because they think they're better than me. It's a much better feeling than I ever imagined. Camila, owner of 5 five-star hotels, successful marketing consultant, and, for the first time in her life, a woman who is completely worth it on her own. Recently, I opened a 6th hotel in Las Vegas. During the inauguration, a journalist asked me about my business philosophy. I smiled and said, never underestimate a quiet person. Sometimes she's just watching and learning. 3 weeks ago, I saw a post from Julia on LinkedIn looking for a job. She mentioned having learned valuable lessons about humility and respect. I almost felt sorry. Almost. Amanda opened a blog about overcoming and personal growth where she talks about past mistakes, without ever mentioning me directly. She has few followers. And Rachel got a job at a smaller company with a much smaller salary? I found out by chance that she tells the story in a completely different way, where I'm the psychopath villain and they're the innocent victims. I don't care. The people who matter know the truth. Today, when I enter any of my hotels, I'm received as the owner I always was. Employees greet me with genuine respect, not because they discovered who I am, but because they always knew. Guests treat me well because I project confidence and self-esteem, and when someone tries to diminish me or treat me badly, I simply smile and move on. I don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I learned that the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's living so well that they become irrelevant. And today, for the first time in 30 years, I am completely irrelevant to people who don't deserve me. Camila, owner, businesswoman, and woman who finally discovered her own worth. And I wouldn't change absolutely anything about what I did.